A cowboy hat is hanging on a wall. A wall from an old house from an old town where many souls live. And there, among those souls, is the soul of the man who used to wear that cowboy hat. A man full of wisdom, a man full of love. That man was willing to sacrifice anything for his family. He was even willing to walk on his knees if that was necessary, just for the happiness of his family. That man was my grandpa, Francisco Valencia. My name is Veronica Garcia, and I am very proud of being his granddaughter. Francisco Valencia left this world in March of 2008. But his body died, but not his soul. He was one of the greatest men that ever existed on earth. For me, he was a hero who was willing to do anything to give you a hand. He was willing to solve any problem, no matter how hard, how big or small the problem was, he was always there. I remember when I was 13 years old, I used to go to middle school in a different town, far from our house. It was about 45 minutes away from our house, to be more precise. We were about 12 students, and we had to ask for a ride every day to go back home. This happened in Mexico, by the way. Well, one day nobody would pick us up after school. It was almost nighttime, and none of our parents could go pick us up. But I made a call to the only person that was going to be willing to make the trip. And guess what? There he was, my grandpa. I still remember his old little pickup truck full of students. He dropped each one of us home safely that evening and was very happy to do it. He used to say that the most beautiful treasures he had in life were his grandchildren. He always stood up for each one of us. I remember that I used to be called the spoiled one by everybody else in the family, because no matter how busy he was or how far he was from me, he would always have time for me. He even taught me how to drive my first car when I was only 10 years old, and people would say he was crazy, but he didn't care. I still remember the first time I drove his car. I was so scared. I can still remember how I was sweating and shaking, but all he would say was, "Don't worry, you're doing just fine." Even if I was driving like a drunk person, he would say, "Don't worry, keep going, you're doing just fine." He made me feel so proud of myself. I can't remember, God knows, how feeling insecure I feel when I was with him. And now, every time I visit his house, I can still feel his scent and smell his perfume. It even feels like he never left. I close my eyes and see him smiling at me like he always did. I can still imagine him doing his garden and smiling and waving his hat to everybody passing by, because he was very well known by everybody in town. "Hola, Don Pancho," would everybody say. He was the mechanic, the plumber, the gardener. He was the handyman of the town. My grandma remembers him every day. She always looked very happy and even said she was grateful of being his wife. They got married at a very young age. She was only 13 years old and he was already 23. But despite the difference of ages, they were always in love. He would kiss her and hug her in front of everybody. Even my mom used to say, "I don't recall ever seeing my parents fighting or arguing. They were always so happy." Well, let me tell you, my grandpa was a very, very wise man. He would make up jokes and tell stories to keep us entertained. He taught us how to overcome our fears, showing us a path to becoming the persons we are today: respectful and responsible, respect and love. Those were the main points of his teachings. Teachings that today, as his grandchildren, make up our hearts and minds. I am very proud of being his granddaughter, and I know that one day I will see him again in the other life, wearing that old cowboy hat that is hanging on the wall, the wall from an old house, a house from an old town, when his soul lives and his body rests in peace. Thank you.